Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Spojmie Nasiri, and I am an immigration attorney in Pleasanton, California. I wanted to do this live session today regarding the presidential proclamation that was put forth yesterday by President Trump, and which goes into effect midnight tonight. There have been a lot of questions regarding who's affected by this proclamation and who's not affected. So what I wanted to do this afternoon is to take a step-by-step approach in regards to this proclamation and how it impacts people who are applying for immigration benefits abroad versus applying for benefits in the United States. First and foremost, we all know that this administration has sought to limit legal migration and policies towards U.S. immigration over the course of his presidency. First, we had the Muslim ban, which limited a majority of Muslim country individuals from those countries migrating to the United States, and now we have this presidential proclamation put forth. Let's be clear, it's another pathway for limiting and almost halting legal migration. Every day we hear about people saying that individuals should wait in line for their term to migrate to the United States, just like everyone else has, and do the right way, the legal way. Well, many are doing that exact thing. They are taking the pathway. They are waiting for years to be united with their family, for their loved ones, only to be halted by such discriminatory policies as the travel ban and the proclamation that has been put forth right now. So what I want to kind of throw out there to everyone is, normally the president will issue an executive order, which by congressional, by legal constitutional rights, the president has the right to give an executive order which will bind as a force of law, and it does not require Congress's approval, but it does require that executive orders are subject to review and interpretation. So why I raise that issue is that if you look at this current order, it's actually a proclamation, which is a presidential statement issuing a public policy. It's still binding and it's still enforceable, but just to throw out there that it's a proclamation and not an executive order. Although it's still enforceable, and the president has a right to make that proclamation. Now, what I want to do is take a few minutes and talk about step-by-step process of what this proclamation means and how it impacts those inside the United States versus those who are outside of the United States. Also, I would like to go through my process and explain, and I'm looking at my computer because this policy was just proposed yesterday, so I'm trying to memorize it, but I don't want to give the wrong information. So I'm going to be looking at my notes that I've taken in preparation for this live session. And also, if you have any questions, please go ahead, post your questions, and I will leave Q&A. I'll leave a session for the Q&A and answer the questions that people may have. But I'm hoping that a lot of your questions will be answered in this session, and I try to make it least amount of legalized language so that a layperson or those who are trying to understand the system can kind of get the gist of what I'm talking about. Now, what is the proclamation? Well, the proclamation put forth yesterday suspends all immigration into the United States for 60 days starting at midnight tonight, and it will go into effect until June 2nd of 2020. Now, I want to caution the advice that I'm given right now, and is my analysis and analysis of many of my colleagues in the immigration field and understanding of the proclamation. But just like anything else with this president, everything is uncertain, everything is always changing. So this is the updated information that I have that I can share with you regarding this proclamation. But keep in mind, things are rapidly changing, so it's best to always be up to date on some of the information. And I will continue to provide as much guidance as I can in this time of difficulty that we're all facing with this pandemic, let alone piling on other uncertainties regarding this new proclamation that's being put forward. So I completely understand the stress that everyone is going through, the uncertainty that everyone is going through. And I'm just trying to play my part and trying to help the community inside the United States and the immigrant community outside understand their rights and what these proclamations mean, and to avoid any confusion that you may have. So again, the proclamation will take effect midnight tonight, and it will go into June 2nd, 2020. It's for 60 days. And at this time, the proclamation in and of itself doesn't make sense to many of us, because as you are aware, or if you're not aware, many, if not all, U.S. consulates and embassies are closed at this time. What does that mean? Well, that means that at this time all cases have been halted, and there are no visas being issued, there are no interviews, there are no processes taking place. So at this time, regardless of the proclamation, there's no activity going on at any of the consulates abroad and the U.S. embassies. So in essence, we know what is this administration trying to accomplish by putting forth this proclamation. We have yet to know. If the government does reopen, and offices and embassies and consulates do reopen within the next week or the next month or prior to the proclamation, then when I discuss who's impacted, will be impacted for the remaining 60 days. And so it's counterintuitive to this policy in terms of how long it's going to go on, but we know that those who are affected will be affected for at least 60 days from this midnight tonight. Now, I want to be very, very clear, and I'm getting so many calls, so many messages, so much concern from everyone, that what happens if I'm in the United States? If you are in the United States and you want to file a petition for your loved ones, including your parents, your siblings, your spouse, your fiance, or you have employment-based petitions, any sort of petition that you have, please continue to file them. If you haven't filed it, this is the good time to file them. This proclamation does not, and I repeat, does not affect anyone filing petitions right now. Some of the questions that have been raised, well, the embassies and the consulates are closed, so what would be the point of me filing a petition for a relative, family? Well, right now, USCIS is accepting applications. We don't know what the future holds. We don't know what the process is going to be. We do know that they are accepting petitions. So if you are interested or you are in the process, continue to file any and all application here within the United States, because the proclamation does not affect anyone within the United States. And that includes if you have a family-based petition, employment-based petition, and so continue. Also, continue to process if your cases have gone through USCIS and the petitions have been approved, but you're at the NVC stage. At this point, the NVC process, which is within the U.S., is still processing. Sometimes the systems are slow, sometimes the systems are down, but continue to process your case at the NVC stage in the hopes that when the consulate reopens, and this proclamation does not apply to you, then you can just continue doing the cases at the consulate. I see a lot of questions coming in, and I'm hoping that my going through will answer all those questions, and then again I'll leave some questions at the end. So I see everyone's questions coming in. Thank you very much for your patience. So again, in addition to those who are in the United States, let's take a step back in addition to anybody who's outside of the United States as of April 24th, 2020. Who does this proclamation not apply to? So now, I've already discussed that the proclamation does not apply to anyone within the United States, so continue filing the petition. And I apologize for repeating some of this stuff because I'm seeing the same questions coming up, and so I'm just repeating as I go. And I'm trying to answer the questions as they're coming through indirectly. Now, in addition to those who are in the United States who want to file continue, who does it not apply to? So if you are outside of the United States as of midnight tonight, the proclamation does not apply if you are a U.S. citizen, if you are a U.S. lawful permanent resident / green card holder, if you are outside And I know that in a lot of the embassies and the airlines around the world are right now halted. The recommendation as a green card holder is you should not be staying out more than 6 months, and definitely not more than a year. Now, if you fall into that time frame and you are a green card holder, as soon as the airports open up, please contact the airline nearest you and try to get back into the United States to avoid any issues that may arise because you are a green card holder. But if you're a green card holder, this proclamation does not impact you, and so you're okay. Now, the other thing is if you have a valid immigrant visa in your passport at this date, any kind of a visa, you are not subject to this proclamation. If you have some sort of travel document like advance parole or any other type of document that allows you, and that has been done before April 24th, which is midnight tonight. So if those of you who've got visas, any sort of visas, but you are not able to get on a plane and get out and come to the U.S., you are fine per the proclamation. So individuals who are entering the U.S. on non-immigrant visas. Now this is a special section that it has for fiance visas. So if your fiance has a visa already issued prior to midnight tonight, then they are not subject to this proclamation. However, in reading closely the proclamation, there was a section in there that said the government has will be reevaluating this within 30 days. So this is really crucial for me to reiterate that at this time, if your fiance has been granted a visa, they can enter the United States, but this is subject to evaluation 30 days from tomorrow. What does that evaluation mean? I have no idea, and neither do any of colleagues that are reading this proclamation. Will have to wait and see, just like anything else with this administration. So individuals who are present in the U.S. and applying for adjustment of status. So if you're here on some sort of a visa, but you have a spouse that's filing for you or you're filing for your parents, continue to process those within the United States. In addition, those who are not subject to the proclamation are those individuals and immigrants entering on visas as medical professionals, those who are seeking to help with the COVID-related work, and also those individuals seeking to enter on EB, immigrant investor visas. So if you have any question, you can email me. In addition, those who are not subject to the proclamation are spouses and children under age 21 of United States citizens. So if you have a petition filed once the consulates abroad reopen, then they're not subject to this 60-day proclamation. In addition to that, members of the U.S. Armed Forces, their spouses and their children, and also the immigrants, the nationals of Afghanistan and Iraq who hold the special immigrant visa. So if your visa has been granted, or you're going to get it within that period of time as soon as the consulates reopen and they continue to process, they are not subject to the proclamation. Again, as I mentioned earlier, the fiancé visas are not subject to it for the duration of 30 days, and we'll see what happens. In addition, those seeking asylum, refugee, or any other type of protection, they're not subject to the proclamation. So now, just to kind of give an overview, I've discussed those individuals who are in the United States who are not subject to the proclamation, and also those categories of individuals that I stated. Now, what I want to get into is who does this proclamation apply to? So the order only applies to those who are outside of the United States as of 4/20/20, which is tomorrow, and they want to immigrate into the U.S. and they're seeking to either live in the United States permanently or work. So any foreign nationals who's seeking to get a visa who's outside as of midnight tonight, who does not have a visa at this time, then they will be subject to the proclamation. This proclamation also unfortunately applies to parents and adult children of U.S. citizens. Again, I want to reiterate, this ban does apply to all parents and adult citizens, adult children of U.S. citizens. So if you have filed a petition if you haven't filed a petition, go ahead, file the petition within here. But if they haven't obtained if they have not obtained the visa as of tomorrow, then they're going to have to wait the period of time, and we'll have to see what happens after that in order to continue processing the visas for spouses and children of lawful permanent sorry, let me repeat. All parents and adult children of U.S. citizens. This proclamation, unfortunately, also applies to spouses and children of lawful permanent residents / green card holders. So again, this applies to spouses and children of lawful permanent residents. So if your petition is pending and you're waiting for an interview abroad at a consulate, then we're going to have to wait until the proclamation is lifted, or there are further instructions on how we can move those forward. It also applies to most employment-based immigrant visas to enter for the duration of this ban. One of the other questions someone asked me is whether it applies to visa lottery applications. Yes, it does apply to visa lottery applications, unfortunately, at this time. So that was sort of my overview of what it applies to and what it doesn't apply to. I would also say that if you're doing the 601A hardship waivers, at this time, again, the consulates are not open, so if people are in queue waiting for an interview to be scheduled, until the consulates reopen, we are not seeing the 601As being subject to it. But if they fall into the category of whether they are the spouses or children of green card holders, then it may or may not impact it. So again, at this time, the proclamation doesn't really, change much for the consular processing, because at this time none of the consulates are open, and if they do resume open, then if the consulates reopen prior to the 60-day, those who I mentioned will be subjected to the to this proclamation. So what I would like to do, that was sort of my overview. I hope that that made sense to everyone. The major questions I had was about the visa lottery, the special immigrant visas, the proclamation also, in terms of SIV cases, special immigrant translators. And so I hope that that gives you the information that you are seeking. As I mentioned earlier, it's going to continue to change. It's going to continue to evolve. And unfortunately, this is the disarray that we're seeing under this administration, and the uncertainty and the stress level, not only for immigrants who are continuing to do the right thing, follow the laws, follow the path, wait rightfully, only to be faced with such obstacles as this proclamation. I want to open up the floor. I spoke for about 15-20 minutes. What I'd like to do is, to be more beneficial to everybody, what I'd like to do is open up the floor for questions. And I'm looking at my screen because I can read the questions better than on my phone that I'm looking at. So let me just give me 1 second to go back and look at the questions and see what questions you guys may have. I'm seeing a lot of messages about Ramadan. That was I was saving that message for my last message. Ramadan Kareem and Ramadan Mubarak for everybody celebrating in the holy month of Ramadan, starting inshallah tomorrow. I look forward to spending more time with family, and I hope that your Ramadan is as blessed. Like anything else, we've had many challenges our ways, and may Allah give you the strength to be able to get through this Ramadan and cherish what's important, which is our family and our health. And we will continue, and as the saying goes, # we're all in this together. So we take it one day at a time, and I'm hoping that to do my share is to ease some of the anxiety everybody may have and the uncertainty, and the loved ones that are consistently waiting abroad and wondering what's going to happen to them. Many families are separated, many loved ones are separated by this ban, and now they're continuing to be affected in a different way. And also, just to pitch in, it's time to flip the coin and vote if you're eligible and you're a U.S. citizen, and see if we can get someone else in office that can reverse all of this, these unlawful, difficulty, hardships that everyone is facing. So some of the questions that I have asking everyone here is, So it says, how about the citizen spouses who are waiting for their visas? So if the question is, if you're a U.S. citizen and your spouse is waiting, per the proclamation, I stated that it does not apply to U.S. citizens. So if you are abroad, and so you can file for your spouses. Let me double check to make sure that I'm just going back to the proclamation. Yes, so just to reiterate, the question was, what about your spouses? So again, please bear with me. I've been reading this proclamation since yesterday, and I don't want to give any incorrect information. So the question was, the question says, how about the citizen spouses who are waiting for their visas? So I don't understand the question, but if your question is, if you're a U.S. citizen and you filed for your spouse, then this proclamation does not affect it. It says it affects those who are parents and adult children of U.S. citizens. So you can go ahead and apply. But if you're a green card holder, then it does apply to spouses and children of green card holders. So someone asked me a question, does it affect SIV? I said, no, it does not affect SIV cases. So they're exempt from the proclamation. So if they do already have a visa and they're just waiting for the airports to reopen, they are able to come in. If they haven't, then they will continue to process, and they are not affected by the proclamation. The comments are coming in so much, I'm trying to keep up. So please keep your questions related to this proclamation. People are asking me all kinds of questions related to their personal case, or it has nothing to do with the proclamation. My live session is to give information so that we are consistent and people are coming in and tuning in for the topic that I've chosen for the day. So someone asked again, is the order impacting the I-130 petition for parents? So it says, so this applies to spouses and children of lawful permanent resident. Now, the question is, does it impact I-130 petitions for parents? I'm not understanding your question, because somebody who's a green card holder cannot file for their parents per U.S. immigration law. You have to be a U.S. citizen to file for your parents. The proclamation does apply to U.S. citizen applying for parents and adult children, and it also applies to spouses and children of lawful permanent residents. So the question is confusing, because a green card holder cannot file for their parents. You have to become a U.S. citizen and then file for your parents. So I hope that answers your question. Someone asked again about SIV. Please listen carefully. I said that it does not impact SIV cases. Another question about K-1 fiance visas. As I mentioned earlier in the live session, that at this time, the K-1 fiance visas, which are considered non-immigrant visas, are not impacted by the proclamation. However, the proclamation itself states that this will be evaluated within 30 days from when the proclamation takes effect, which is tomorrow. So at the end of the 30 days, we'll have to see what other extensions have been added to the proclamation, or how they're going to proceed. So at this time, if you have a K-1 fiance visa case processing, once, depending on where the case is at. So if the case is at if you just recently filed a fiance petition, it's within USCIS. As I mentioned earlier, those cases are not impacted by the proclamation, so it'll continue to process, and then it'll go to the National Visa Center, which is still continuing to process cases, and then it has to go abroad to the consulate in the home country to schedule them for an interview. So if you've already had your interview and you're just waiting for the visa to be issued, at this time the consulates are closed. Assuming that they reopen before the 60 days, then the K-1 fiance visas will be affected for 30 days from tomorrow, and then we'll have to evaluate to see what happens. If somebody applied for asylum, those cases are within the United States. As I mentioned earlier, those are not impacted by this proclamation. Anybody who's in the United States applying for any type of relief, including asylum, is not impacted by this proclamation. So someone's saying, yeah, so it does not apply for the asylum cases. Someone is asking a question that I'm a U.S. citizen and my fiance visa got refused and they didn't send me any details. What happened about a month ago was that all of the online portals at the consulate where the visas were processing, whether it was fiance, spousal, parent, child, siblings, anywhere that were in administrative processing, automatically got a notice called in the system, in the CEAC system, it stated that it was refused. Our understanding is that that is not an actual refusal. What we are recommending is to go ahead, first of all, email the consulate and ask them, is it an actual refusal? And if it is an actual refusal, ask them why it is being refused. But again, at this time, all the consulates are closed, so you're probably not going to get an answer. So what I would recommend is continue to send the emails, but I would also wait till the consulates all reopen. And they do respond, but again, we are under tremendous uncertainty. We're under this pandemic, so people need to be patient and need to understand that there are not individuals behind those consulates working to email you, to respond to you. So be patient. It's going to take a while. Again, we are all in this together and we need to make sure that we give it ample information. But what I would reassure all of those who got a refusal notice at the CEAC system online, to please email them and ask them if it is a refusal, and if it is a refusal, to actually give you a reasoning behind why it was refused. So someone has a question: for someone who had a green card approved this year, will they still be able to enter the U.S. or get an extension since there are no flights coming in? Well, if they have their green card physically with them while they traveled out, we always recommend that people have either their green card and travel with it. If for some reason, under certain circumstances, people don't have, the immigrant does not have a green card but gets an advance parole to travel out, then as soon as the airports reopen, we advise that you try to get in and try to come back in. If the extension has expired, we'll have to work with the consulates and the airlines to figure out how to get individuals. At this time, USCIS has not given any guidance on what's going to happen for those who have overstayed, maybe on their green card more than a year, or if they had advanced parole and they stayed out more than the amount that was on that travel document. But our understanding is that USCIS is going to have to accommodate individuals to be able to come back into the United States. So someone asked a question about conditional green card extension expires on May 7th. If they're in the United States and the extension expires, USCIS within the United States is processing the cases, and people are able to call the system, but I don't think you're going to get much help. So at this time, we would just wait, and we would assume that USCIS will extend those statuses. If you're in the United States and either the conditional green card expired, the 10-year green card expired, or the extension letter expired, it doesn't mean per se you're out of legal status. It just means you should not travel out of the United States while that expiration has happened. But just stay tight, and we're hoping that at this time we are not sure when USCIS will reopen. I know there was a date of May 7th thrown around, but we haven't gotten any updates on exactly when they will reopen. There's also discussion if you're in California, the governor may reopen some aspects of the economy this Friday, which is tomorrow. I'm not certain about that. So if someone is asking a question about May 7th, continuously saying it's going to reopen, that is not a certainty. So if you're a green card holder, you should not be staying out of the United States more than 6 months. And more importantly, while you're out those less than 6 months, you must continue to keep your ties in the United States. That means bank accounts, checking accounts, credit cards, car insurance, anything that shows the ties to the U.S. but you left temporarily. So, so I'm getting all kinds of questions regarding, individual cases and things like that. Again, my aim of this live session was to provide detailed, concise information on the proclamation. I'm going to stay on just for a few more minutes if anyone has any question pertaining to the proclamation, so that I can stay on point to the discussion that we're having. I appreciate all of your time, and I hope that this was informative for many of you. Many of the questions, of the repeated questions I'm getting here, I'm getting through email, through Messenger, through my law office, through text messages, through WhatsApp, through Viber. There's same questions on point regarding all of the hot issues that I covered pertaining to the proclamation. If I didn't answer anything specific pertaining to the proclamation, please feel free to message me at my law office. But again, please limit your questions to the proclamation in itself, and we'll have to see how it goes through. If I don't see any more questions, I will just wait a few more minutes and then go from there. Let me just check, see if there's anything else coming in. So again, a lot of the questions that I'm seeing are pertaining to personal questions that I've tried to, in my best, to answer as much as I could. Some people are at one of the last questions I'll leave with is, a lot of people are asking, once USCIS reopens, what happens? So prior to USCIS closing down, there were a lot of individuals that had interviews for citizenship, that had interviews for marriage-based petitions, for parents, for employment, any type. Well, as you're aware, all of the USCIS offices across the country are not taking currently in-person interviews. So once they reopen, they will be sending rescheduling notices, and I can't tell you how long that's going to take. There's going to be a backlog for sure. Again, be patient, and those notices should be done. The other thing I would do, just to be as a cautious, is that when USCIS does reopen and they are accepting, in-person interviews for your citizenship, for your asylum interview, for your follow-up, for marriage-based, for employment-based, anything like that, I would just call USCIS and see, if you're in queue to be scheduled. You may not get the information you want to hear, and it may take you hours and hours to get through. Unfortunately, everyone is trying to get the same information, and I will try to keep you updated and do these live sessions the next time around, in the next 30 days, in the next 60 days when this proclamation is done. I hope that you guys have a blessed day, and Ramadan Kareem again, and Ramadan Mubarak for everyone celebrating. Please stay safe, please stay positive, and then we're all in this together, and we'll get through it together. Have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.